What is going on, guys? Today, she's finally here. 2019 Excursion 6 HD by Expedition Archery. I've been waiting a very long time for this bow to come in, and I'm super excited to get it set up. I already have the Peep Sight in, I already put a little Bojack's love on it just because I wanted to do something to it. Today, we're going to bring you through the whole process of how I set up my bows at home. Again, I'm not a professional tuner by any means. But this is all stuff that you can do at home by yourself, fairly easy. The only thing you might need is to bring it to a bow press to actually put your Peep Sight inside your strings. I was going to break these up into individual pieces and show you how to do a sight and how to do the rest in its own individual video, but I think what we're going to do, just so we can get the excitement of the whole entire build for someone who wants to watch it start to finish, we're going to do the whole thing as one video. And if you're interested in just want to see how to tie in a Peep Sight or just how to set up a QAD Ultra Rest, we'll put the timestamps in the description below. You can fast forward and watch just those little pieces. So we're going to probably zoom you guys in and out a few times, get everything set up. First thing that we're going to do today is set up the QAD Ultra Rest. And I already did some fancy string tying in. I did that off camera as well because it was the first time I ever did it. I had no idea how to do it, and I don't know if it's actually going to hold up. So it's going to be new for me. So we'll zoom you guys in, and I'll show you kind of how to get the basic setup of your rest done. All right, so for your rest, first thing that I do, and I've had to do this with every single Ultra Rest that I've had. You may not have to with yours, but they give you a little spacer, just a little teeny polymer plastic piece that's going to actually go right in between what attaches to your bow and the rest itself. So there's a little screw right here. We're going to take that out, pop this in. They actually give you a longer screw to replace it with as well, and we're going to get that done. Alright, so that's in. I didn't snug it down a whole lot because I want to get it right on the bow, and then I'll snug it down after. So again, they come with another little bolt here for you, and that's going to attach right here to the side. These are called your burger holes, I believe, if I'm saying that correctly. That rest will go right in here. Get it started. So with your rest, when this comes down and you come to full draw, and you pull that tight, you want those prongs to be as vertical with the bow as possible. Ideally, the rest itself will go right up against the riser of your bow. This one's got kind of a weird bend right there, so I'm not going to be able to do that. But I can get the top pretty close and then just kind of eyeball it. And then once it looks pretty good, you can cinch that down. Make sure it doesn't move. So when you come to full draw and this pulls, those prongs will sit pretty vertical. That might not be vertical for you guys, but they'll sit pretty vertical to the bow itself. Okay, now the next part for setting up your rest, you need an arrow. This is just one I use for tuning and setting up. They already have a brass knock point that I'm going to take off because I don't like using those. These burger holes are also the center of your rest, so you want your arrow to be cutting those holes dead center. So again, just kind of eyeball. I can see that I need to come lower, and there's little lines on here. I don't know how well you guys can see them, but just to give you an idea of where you're at. Again, this isn't how I would normally set up a bow. I would have it on my bench, which would make it a lot easier for me. And just kind of keep moving it. It's getting pretty close. It's hard to fine tune these. Their newest rests have micro adjustments on them, and it's really nice. That's cinched down. When that comes back, my knocking point's probably not perfectly correct. When that draws, sitting vertical, right through the middle of those burger holes, drops away perfectly. So the next thing we are going to do is just the QAD gives you this little mounting bracket for your cable. I like to use them. Some guys don't. Some guys like to have them tied in. I like to use them just for the fact that if anything goes wrong with this in the field, I have extra ones and can fix them. Whereas if I have this tied into here and it pulls out for some reason or breaks, and I don't have a bow press to get it back in, I can't fix it. So for me, even though they're a little big and gaumy, I prefer them to tying them in. But I'm not going to do anything really with that right now. I'm just going to keep it on there loose, and we'll set that later in the video. I just want to get it out of the way and on there. So what we're doing now is they came with a little knock piece, which is nice, but at the same time it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to take off. This little brass, just a knocking point, but it's kind of an old school knocking point. So you have to have pliers. There's a few different styles. These ones are just cheap ones with the little V right here, and you just basically try to split that edge to take it off. So I might have to stand up and get leverage on it, but we'll get that off. That was one of the easiest ones I ever took off. So again, these pliers will have, if you ever want to use these, you can put them back on with that as well. Again, this just adds a lot of tension to my knock, so I prefer to tie mine in versus use these, so that's what we're about to do. But I got to get my knock point set exactly where I want it. So again, goes back to eyeballing. I do a lot of eyeballing when it comes to setting up my bows. So first thing I'm going to do is knock my arrow. It's hard to see with all this light. So I try to run my arrow pretty much flat to a hair knock high. And every bow likes something a little bit different, so you're going to have to fine tune and play with it to see what your bow shoots the best. For me, I like to try to start as flat to, just like I said, just a hair knock high as possible. That tends to be pretty much within the sweet spot of most bows that I've ever set up. And I'm just going to eyeball this again, like I said. So to my eyes, and I'll have Jordan look at it as well, that looks pretty level. What do you guys think? Did I screw it up? So once I have that set, Silver Sharpie is going to be your best friend in a bow setup. I will mark both sides of my knock. Just in case something moves, I can put it back to where it was and be good. So this is why I have this short arrow, so I can set this up. Again, this isn't where I would normally work on things or anything like that, so it's going to be a little bit awkward, but that short arrow gives me room to mount it up like this and not have it lose its position or be weird. Now I need my serving, and I tie in a top and bottom knot just for a place of constant for my knock to ride in. And these aren't anything fancy. This is just literally go through it once, twice, and you want it to be somewhat close to your knock, not right up on it, but pretty close. So I started that one on the top, so my next one I'll come at the bottom, do the same thing. 1, 2, and I'll just start stacking them like that. I usually do it 3 times. 1, 2, and then 1, 2 on the bottom. So I guess 4 times, 2 on each side. And then I'll go into the middle of those first 2. 1, 2. I'll try to lay that right in the middle and pull pretty good and snug. And then we can pull this off, cut and burn. And again, when you're burning anything on your string like this, always have the flame up. That's one of two. And you want to leave a little hair size gap, because as you draw back, that string will start to pinch and can pinch on your nock. So if you have a nock and your arrow starts bouncing as you're drawing, it's because these are a little bit too tight. And your D-loop will sometimes push them closed too, so it's a little tough, but leave a little bit of a gap and you should be able to keep that nock pinch down. Alright, we lost the light, so things are going to look a little bit different now. So we got that tied in. I'll just double check that that all looks good. And now it's time for my D-loop. And I already have that pre-cut and burnt at the ends. So anytime you're putting on a D-loop, your top knot should go on the inside. That way if you're shooting a release like this, if that knot's on the top, as you turn to shoot, doesn't matter if you're right or left-handed, it doesn't torque it as much. If it's the other way around and you turn it, see how much more it's going to add more torque to your string. So always get in the habit, not every release is like that, but just get in the habit of your top knot goes on the inside, your back knot or bottom knot will go on the back side of your string and sit like that. But you go around your string, up around, come across it, down, give myself a little more stuff to work with, and then through that loop you'll bring the other side through. Just like that. And you'll do that same knot on both sides, but this one's going to come on the back side now. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is go outside, actually physically draw the bow, and just make sure that those knots cinch down good. Always do that kind of stuff with an arrow, an actual full-size arrow with a tip on your bow in case something slips. It has something to throw the energy into other than the bow itself, because dry firing these are not good. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to try to sight. Actually, first I'll throw the sight on, then we'll go out and do that. Then I can get the Peep Sight set exactly where I want it. So most sights are going to have multiple options to mount the sight bracket to the bow itself. This one's also a rail system, which I really like because I can fine tune my sight to my Peep Sight diameter. I'm going closest one in because that's what it looks like I did last time. But this is really very basic. Alright, now we can go outside, set this, make sure my Peep Sight's where I'm going to want it. Whenever you're going to sight in or figure out your Peep Sight, always get anchored to where you want to be. Close your eyes and then open them. And I got to come way down. Perfect. That's perfect. So I'll go inside and mark that with a Sharpie and then we can tie her in. Alright, so we got the D-loop and everything set. D-loop's a little bit longer than I normally would like, but I'll wear that out in a month and put a new one on, so it'll be fine. I don't really worry about fine-tuning everything until, with a brand new bow, until everything's kind of stretched for a little while. We're going to be tying in the Peep Sight. Again, this is just how I've always done it. This isn't necessarily the best knots or whatever. I just think it looks nice, and it's the only way that I know how to do it, so that's what I'm going to do. So first, you take a short tag end, come through that 4 times. Pull those somewhat snug together. Give myself a little bit more room. Then you'll take the shorter end, lay that back over, and then come over 4 times over the top of everything with your longer end. Our light just crapped out on us in the middle of this, so we're gonna do what we can here. But go over that 4 times, pull that tight, and then you'll take your short tag end and move that out of the way and go around 4 more times again. And again, pull that nice and snug, and then this is all set to burn when you're done. Now from here, we're going to go down one side of the string, around the peep sight, and down the opposite side, and then end with our knots. So for that, we'll run between the 2 strings. And I always do one right up close first, and then we can run them through. And this really doesn't matter how many times you do it, just I try to keep them consistent on both ends, as consistent as possible. Got a little bit too much string, but it's making it a little difficult, but I'd rather have too much than not enough. And just try to hold tension the best you can as you're going through this. It can be a little bit difficult, especially when you don't do it that often like me. So as I get close to my peep sight, I forgot to mark it, but I'll try to cinch that string under if I can. Just so that that kind of locks itself in and you can give your fingers somewhat of a break. But then I'll come around it a couple times. Pull that nice and tight. And now I'm going to go down the opposite side that I just did. So I do the same thing. I try to cinch that up underneath that peep sight. So again, it locks it in, and then I can start wrapping it again. So we'll get those kind of looking somewhat the same, and then we'll go around both sides 4 times. Pull that nice and tight. And go 4 more times. And now we'll do the ending knot, which you just create a loop. So this is going to be on this side. Your string's going to be closest to you, depending on how you're doing it. And then we're going to bring this back through 4 times as well. So then when you're done, you're going to have 2 sides of knots like that. You're going to lay your tag end over, and then you're going to unwrap from this side and wrap onto this side. Until all you have is this loop and this tag end. And then you're going to pull that tag end through, and just like that. So now you have it tied in and somewhat tight, and you can actually, depending on which side you're pulling your tension from, you can actually tweak this and turn it just a little bit. And the best thing that I found to use is an Allen wrench. Just wrap it around your access tag end a bunch of times and just make sure that's pulled nice and tight. And sometimes it breaks, especially when it's that long. But see how it's turning it back the other way towards you guys when I'm doing that? So then it's riding perfectly straight, and then we can cut and burn, and then she's tied in. Alright, so I'm going to go back outside real quick, draw it again, make sure everything's good, and then I'll be back with you. Alright guys, we are good to go at this point. Now it's the fun stuff, putting on the accessories. We got a dead ringer with some bow jacks, dampeners for a stabilizer, and some Max Jacks limb dampeners. So this is pretty simple. Bow jacks, they just slide right in. Try not to pull on these when you're doing it, just because then that will rip them a little bit and tear them. I don't really have a sweet spot for these. Just somewhere, you know, a couple inches from your riser is fine. I gotta tell you, this was the first time I've ever drawn this bow, and the only reason I didn't get their flagship Mako is because of the 5-inch brace height. That was just kind of weird to me. I've never had anything less than a 6-inch brace height, which this is. They also have a 7-inch brace height version. But this is still shooting over 350 feet per second IBO, cranking fast. The statistics on it was like 3.9 pounds bare bow. Just statistically looking, as far as looking at it on a piece of paper, it looked like it would match up to bows that I've preferred in the past as well. So this system for this is pretty cool. This will actually mount to your bow, and then this part, you can take it on and off, and it just slides in, and then you tighten it down. I like this stabilizer from Dead Ringer a lot. But again, this is super easy. There you have a little spot right here for you. Just an Allen wrench. Your stabilizer will just go right into that. And that's that. All we're gonna do now is go outside, set my draw cable for the drop away, and then I'm gonna actually put an arrow on. I almost forgot. So when I do my center shot of my bow, people do it a few different ways. Some guys will look over the top of the bow, line up their limb pockets and their stabilizer, and adjust their arrow left and right according to that. What I found is that sometimes that where your stabilizer goes into is either offset or not drilled perfectly straight. Easiest thing that I've learned and that I do is I'll line my string that your arrow's connected to through the middle of your grip and then through the middle of your limb pockets. And if you can tell on this one, once I center that, you can see it would be pointed to your guys' right. Arrow's pointed this way big time. So I have to bring it this way. My pins are actually lined up perfectly, but I just have to adjust that. And to do that, there is a Allen screw right here. You just gotta loosen that, and then you can slide that whole thing over. That's pretty good. We'll cinch that down. And all that is you're just a starting point, basically. You may have to tweak depending on what that bow, you know, every shooter is going to do a lot to that arrow as far as its flight goes. So that's just your starting point. That's kind of keeping everything at 0 and a constant, and then you can tweak from there depending on how that arrow's flying out of the bow. That is that. We're going to go outside, set my drawstring for the drop away, and then we can actually shoot it. So when you're setting your drop away, I loosen it up just enough so that as I pull tension, as I draw it, it will kind of self-set itself. Is that right? Self-setting? It'll do what it's supposed to do. And then all you gotta do, find where you put your screwdriver and cinch ya. And now we can go shoot my bow for the very first time ever in its whole entire life. But we're gonna do it at 10 yards, just to be safe. Let's go to 20 and see where I'm actually hitting. Well guys, that is a wrap on the bow build. I got some fine tuning to do, but I haven't really been shooting very much, so I'm not going to worry about really dialing it in just yet. But as long as I'm close, I'll be good. And then as my string stretches and everything stretches out a little bit, I'll start fine tuning and adjusting from there. But thanks for watching. If you guys have any more questions about building bows or setting one up, let us know in the comments below. We'll be glad to help the best we can. Again, nothing that we're doing is anything that you guys can't do at home yourself. So it just takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of time, but you'll get it. So thanks for watching. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one. Did I do all the things? You did great. You did great.